Hello folks, and a warm welcome back to my channel. It's now early mid-December, and at this time of year, apart from getting ready for Christmas, a good astro target for me is the constellation Auriga, the Charioteer. This contains a number of deep sky objects, some of which are star clusters, but there's also a bunch of nebulae in there. And last year I took an image of the Flaming Star Nebula, I think it was last year, which turned out not too bad. I was quite pleased with it. But next door to that is another nebula called the Tadpole Nebula. And I attempted to image this probably 2 or 3 years ago. And whilst I was quite pleased with it at the time, you know, it's not a blinding image. And you certainly can't see the tadpoles that give the nebula its name. So what I'm going to do tonight is get my rig out behind me here and try and take an image of the Tadpole Nebula. So yeah, hopefully you'll join me. My name's John and I make videos on camping, walking and astronomy. If you like what you see in this video, then please check my channel out, as you may find others that interest you there. But in the meantime, let's crack on with this video. Previously, when I shot the Tadpole Nebula, I think I got less than an hour's exposure time on it. Tonight I'm hoping to get closer to 3 hours, and what I want to try and do is bring out the little tadpoles, which are kind of bright parts of this, small but bright parts of this nebula, and you need a reasonable amount of exposure time to do that. So yeah, that's the plan. The nebula itself is fairly easy to find. The stars in the constellation Auriga are quite bright. Capella, the main star, is a very bright star, and there is, next door to where the Tadpole Nebula and indeed the Flaming Star Nebula lie, a fairly distinctive set of a little star pattern. So it's fairly easy to know that you're on your target, even though you might not actually see the nebula in a single exposure. It's a little bit windy at the moment, so I'm going to be limiting my exposure time to less than 1.5 minutes, I would say, in an attempt to reduce the chances of losing exposures through my scope being buffeted about a bit. So anyway, yeah, let's wait for it to get dark, hopefully clear up, and I'll drag my kit outside. So there's good news and there's bad news. It's now about 3 weeks, I think, since I actually went out and took some subs to try and generate a photo. And suffice it to say, things didn't go to plan. When I set up, it was crystal clear. And I went back and checked about an hour later and everything was running tickety-boo. And half an hour after that, I went out again. And when I went out again, I looked back at some of the exposures that I'd taken, and to my horror, more than 2/3 of them were completely covered with cloud. And what was basically happening was it was really windy, and cloud was basically intermittent but coming and going with great frequency and messing up a lot of my subs. Just randomly, when I'd stuck my head out the window, it happened to be clear, so I didn't pick this up. So yeah, after about an hour and a half, I'd got probably 20 minutes worth of usable exposures. And what I decided to do in the end, well, partly I wanted to pack it all in, but I thought I wouldn't waste the effort of setting up. So what I did was I reduced my exposure time down to 1 minute. I was running 90 seconds okay, but I reduced it down to 1 minute on the grounds that each sub exposure would have less chance of being interrupted by cloud. And then I went back in again and just let it run for another couple of hours just to see, you know, if I could salvage anything out of the evening. And what I ended up with was about 75 minutes of usable exposures in the end, which was nothing like what I'd wanted, but I guess was better than nothing. So the good news was that I did actually have a picture at the end of it. What I did figure, and the reason this video is so late going out, was I thought, well, I might get another opportunity to add an hour or two of longer length exposures to add to that original data. And or I was quite interested in taking a wider field view using my ASCAR FMA 135 scope. And I've been waiting for a clear night really for 3 weeks now. The only nights that were clear, there was a massive full moon quite close to where I wanted to shoot, so it would have been completely pointless. So here I am now, Christmas has been and gone, as has the new year, early January, and essentially I've given up now on this particular little project. In about a week's time, the constellation of Orion gets to a good spot for me. The Orion Nebula comes up over the trees at the back of my garden, so I'm kind of interested in shifting emphasis to that target over the next week or two. So yeah, nothing's ever straightforward with astrophotography, but at least I did manage to get an image, and it was better than the original image that I put up at the beginning of this video. You can see 3 nebula in there. There's the Tadpole Nebula, which was the primary target. There was most of the Flame Nebula, or sorry, not the Flame, the Flaming Star Nebula, apologies. And there's also a small nebula called the Spider Nebula that I managed to capture. The Spider Nebula is associated with an even smaller nebula called the Fly Nebula, but that was just outside my field of view. So yeah, I'm actually comparatively pleased with the image that I got, I guess. I did actually pick up the 2 tadpoles. Essentially these 2 tadpoles look like they're swimming towards the centre of the Tadpole Nebula. The bits of the tadpole that I got were the brightest sections, the 2 little heads. They do have tails associated with them, but you couldn't pick that out of my data. I think I would need probably the full 3 hours at least to get them out, but at least I've got the tadpoles, and the image I think is substantially better than the earlier one that I took. So yeah, on that cheery note, I shall put that image up in a tick, and look forward to seeing you next time, when hopefully I'll be imaging something in Orion. So take care everyone, cheerio.